There we go. Good morning. The March 24th, 2021 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order. In the interest of promoting health and safety as we continue to deal with COVID-19, of course, the Board of Estimates continues to meet virtually. At this time, I would ask Comptroller Henry for any corrections, additions, or noted abstentions on today's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President. On page 58 and 59, item number 2, B50005151, salt for snow removal. On the line for the amount of money, it currently reads $5,300,000. Please delete that and insert $0. There were no protests received for today's meeting. 2 items are being deferred on page 2. Item 1, Department of Audits, Baltimore City Law Department biennial financial audit fiscal years ended June 30th, 2019 and 2018 is being deferred. And also on page 2, item number 2, Department of Audits, Department of Health biennial financial audit fiscal years ended June 30th to 2019 and 2018 is being deferred. The law department audit is being deferred from today to next week, March 31st. The health department audit is being deferred from today until April 7th. The following items are moved to the non-routine agenda. On page 15, item number 3, health department, agreement with Baltimore Healthy Start Incorporated. On page 16, item number 5, Health Department Agreement with Family Health Centers of Baltimore, Incorporated. On pages 16 and 17, item number 7, Health Department Agreement with the University of Maryland, Baltimore. On page 18, Health Department Ratification to Agreement with the University of Maryland, Baltimore. On pages 45 and 46, Department of Public Works, Office of Engineering and Construction, task assignment number 009 with ACOM Technical Services Incorporated and transfer of funds. On page 48, item number 1, extra work order number 001, WC 1405, repaving utility cuts and sidewalk restoration at various locations. On pages 49 and 50, item number 2, extra work order number 009, FC 910, improvement to the sanitary sewer collection system in the Herring Run Sewer Shed, Part 2, Chinkapin Run, and transfer of funds. On pages 57 and 58, item number 1, Bureau of Procurement, B50005017, background investigations, Baltimore Police Department. And on pages 58 and 59, item number 2, Bureau of Procurement, B50005151, salt for snow removal. There are no items being moved to the routine agenda. The following abstentions should be noted. Honorable Mayor Brandon Scott on page 16 will be abstaining on item number 6, Health Department Agreement with the Johns Hopkins University. The Honorable President Nick Mosby will be abstaining on page 53 through 56, items number 1, 2, 3, and 4, Office of the State's Attorney for Baltimore City, retroactive travel approval reimbursement. I will be abstaining on page 3, elected officials retirement system, investment advisory agreement with Robert W. Baird and Company Incorporated. And there are no abstentions from City Solicitor James Shea or Acting DPW Director Matthew Garbark. That concludes changes and corrections, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. I now direct the board's attention to the memorandum from my office dated March 22nd, 2021, identifying matters to be considered as routine agenda items, together with any corrections and additions that have been noted by Mr. Comptroller. I will entertain a motion to approve all items contained on the routine agenda.
So moved.
I second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of approving the items on the routine agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The routine agenda has now been officially adopted. Now jumping down to the non-routine agenda. The first set of items on the non-routine agenda can be found on pages 15 through 17, Health Department agreements. Without objections, I would like to consider these three agreements on non-routine agenda as a single item. Hearing and seeing no objections, we will proceed with these agreements as a package. Once again, in the interest of transparency, I want to highlight the waivers to our local MBE, WBE contracting rules are granted for these programs. We understand and know that these are either federal or state pass-throughs. However, they appear on the Board of Estimates agenda as waivers. I know Comptroller Henry, we talked about this. We've been talking about this for 3 months. Is there a way for us to just note that on the actual agenda as opposed to us pulling this off every single week?
I don't see why not. Would you like my staff to work with your staff to find the wording on the agenda that would satisfy this?
Yeah, I think there's actually a paragraph that's already written. I mean, if we could format it in a way where we pull that paragraph above items like this to just communicate that these are not MBE or WBE waivers, that the city's just a fiduciary responsible partner as a pass-through entity for these organizations as it relates to federal or state government. So yeah, we can
Sure,
work
we
on
can do
that.
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, just for the interest of this item, we have Ms. Leslie Thompson from the Health Department, as well as Chief Miller of MWBOO on to hopefully confirm that that is the case for these items. So Chief Miller or Ms. Thompson, are you available to speak at this time?
Yes, good morning, Mayor. Good morning, City President and City Council. All of these items are either federal or state pass-throughs, and the local contract process does not apply.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Are there any questions from the board for the Health Department or MWBO at this time? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve these items.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of approving these three items as a package, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is now approved. Now, the next set of non-routine agenda can be found on page 18. Again, sticking with the Health Department, a ratification of agreement. In this case, there was a waiver of MBE, WBE requirements, but it was not indicated in the item description where the source of funds came to the agreement and whether the impact to MBE, WBE was applicable. Ms. Thompson from the Health Department was able to further explain this item to my office. At this time, I would like to recognize her to speak on behalf of this item. Ms. Thompson, the floor is yours.
Yes, this particular item is a federal pass-through or sub-grantee award, and this requirements or the scope of services for this agreement is for HIV testing and counseling, linkage to care, and prevention counseling for HIV negative clients.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson, for that explanation. Are there any additional questions or concerns from the board? Thank you. Again, I think that it's really important, just in the full interest of disclosure and transparency, that when we have items with waivers, significant waivers, and we're seeing them routinely on the agenda, that it's important for us to be as transparent as possible. So that's why for items like this, we pull off to provide a full description to the general public so they understand and know that we are adhering to the city business the way folks would like it to run and operate. So at this point, I will entertain a motion regarding this particular item.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of approving this item, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. Thank you so much for joining us today, Ms. Thompson. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on pages 45 and 46 of the agenda. Department of Public Works task assignment. At this time, I would like to recognize representative from DPW to speak on behalf of this item.
Good morning, President Mosby, Comptroller Henry, Mayor Scott, and members of the board. Joseph Cabetta, Acting Bureau Head for the Bureau of Water Wastewater, DPW. First item in question is DPW's request for the assignment of task number 9 to on project 1803 to AECOM for the finalization of design documents on a pressure sewer that we are replacing. This pressure sewer conveys wastewater flows to the Patapsco wastewater treatment facility. This particular task is one of several tasks that have been assigned to project 1803. The MBE goal on 1803 is 29%. The WBE goal is 10%. Based on the work that has been done to date, we have achieved 13% on the MBE side and 22% on the WBE. The upset limit for this contract is $5 million, but we have only made it through about $540,000. So there is more work to be done. So the deficit in the MBE will likely be made up as this task is approved and other tasks subsequent to it are approved. So with that, we would request that this task be approved for assignment.
Thank you, Mr. Cabetta. Are there any questions or concerns from members of the board? Ms. Comptroller, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. Cabetta.
Good morning, sir.
I think it's great that the contractor has exceeded their goal for the WBE, but MBE is very short for this point. Can you tell the board any more about the tasks that are already approved or under development that are expected to approve the MBE attainment?
Sure, I do have members of the team on the call that can provide more details, but I can say that there are 10 other tasks that have been approved prior to this. And in some cases, the MBE attainment or the MBE goal is beyond the, let me back up. In some cases, the MBE expected to be utilized exceeds the goal of 29%. So the expectation is that as more tasks get assigned to this contract, again, we are about 10% spent, so we are early in the game. As more tasks get assigned, we will likely inch closer to the goals that have been set.
Okay. The contract covers a broad scope of services, most of which relate to managing all aspects of DPW's construction projects. Are there multiple MBE subcontractors involved in this contract? And if so, what specific services do they provide?
Sure, and if you wouldn't mind, let me ask Mr. Carlos Stephenson to provide some details. Carlos Stephenson, Mr. Stephenson, are you on the call?
I can see him.
Might be having some challenges with the unmute.
I'm sorry, my apologies. Good morning, honorable board.
Good morning.
If everyone can see me, I apologize for the disruption. Yes, for all of our on-call tasks, we usually employ multiple MBEs. There are usually multiple MBEs assigned to each on-call project itself. And then we utilize the task to utilize those particular MBEs and primes associated with that. The services they could be providing could be geotechnical, could be inspection, electrical, a multitude of things that they could be providing for us.
Okay, I note you're using some very general terms that could be. Are you talking about on this specific contract?
Well, most of our on-call contracts are written in a way that we could utilize those services. We usually spell it out in the agreement that what services that we are utilizing these tasks for. This on-call for. So they cover a wide variety of disciplines.
And one last question. I don't know if this is for Mr. Stephenson or Mr. Cabetta. When did this contract go into effect? Oh, I see. It was awarded October 2018.
That's correct.
When did the work actually begin?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with it. We've written 10 tasks on this particular on-call agreement.
Right.
And I would say
The
that
very first
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Kabata. I'm sorry.
the very first task was it says it was started in October of 2019.
It took a year between awarding it and having the first task start?
There are multiple reasons for that. I mean, again, the whole idea of on-call contract is to write the scope broadly enough where, as needs arise, we can essentially activate that consultant or that contractor. So I'm not familiar with the conditions that required, sort of a staggered start, but
And
it looks like.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, if I may, each task still has to go through the approval process, which means each task still would have to go to the board of estimates for approval. So it still would follow the normal track of an agreement. So the length of time is associated with that as well.
Okay, the reason I was curious is because it says that the approximate duration of this task is 24 months. Now that's just task number 9. That's not project number 1803.
That is correct.
Okay, all right. I'm trying to understand how the original agreement is going to expire on October 23rd, 2022, which would be 4 years after it was awarded. And we're more than halfway through that time, but we've only spent 10%, you said, of the money. Is there something abnormal about that, or is that just an example of we haven't had as many needs to call on contractors for this work as we expected?
I would say that it's again, it depends on the scenario. So I wouldn't say this is abnormal. In some cases, we have a pretty fast clip in terms of utilizing the contract. This appears to be one of those cases where the tasks have sort of been meted out at a very a slower pace than we would like.
Okay, Mr. President, I think that's all the questions I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. Mr. Cabetta, or I believe Mr. Stephenson, are there operational advantages to having these like omnibus, like on-call contracts with several different tasks assigned? Or is there a way for us to potentially in the future break out some of the tasks as their own individual type of buckets to provide potential opportunities for MBE or WBE primes in certain areas?
Would you like me to speak, Mr. Kabata, or?
Sure, go.
I believe the focus most on-call tasks provide, or most on-calls provide, is the fact that these are smaller size projects. So, and I'm saying that in the sense that they're a little bit too small to capitalize. So in most instances, we try to mobilize MBE, WBEs on these particular on-calls. Also, because we've already had the on-call agreement in place, it allows us to shorten the time frame to go from the proposal process to getting board approval and the initiation of the actual work. So it actually speeds up that process. Like I said, it still has to get board approval, but the procurement element, we don't have to go through utilizing on-call tasks. So there is a benefit there. And like I said, most of the tasks that are generated are on the smaller scale. And the hope is that we utilize more MBE, WBE participation in those.
And that's why we see the larger MBE goal. I think I see the hand of Director Garbutt.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to note a couple of things. 11 of these tasks have already been issued. So they've been approved, and many of them have, the work is in progress. However, it hasn't necessarily all been spent yet. So all of these are going at the same time. So it's all going to sort of come together at some point with everything that's working concurrently. And also, my understanding is that of the current amounts that have been assigned, not spent, assigned, MBE is 22% and WBE is 18%. So that's what I have here. And then I believe task 12 is the remaining task, and that's going to involve post-award services, which has included, it was committed for MBEs to provide that work for post-award services for inspection and then for monitoring the contracts after they have been completed. So
And
that
that's the
is where
plan. That's the plan that takes us over the goal, or at least
Yes, sir.
meets the goal. Thank you for that
Yes, sir.
clarification. Mr. Stephenson, thank you for all the information you provided to the board today as well. Are there any additional questions or concerns for Mr. Capetta or Mr. Stephenson? Hearing and seeing none, at this point, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Since it's been moved and properly second, all those in favor on the board, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. The next item on the non-routine, again, thank you, Mr. Stephenson. The detail and your description regarding that was very beneficial to the board. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 48 of the agenda. Item number 1, extra work order number 1 in the amount of $2,399,976. WC 1405, repaving, utility cuts, and sidewalk restoration at various locations. Again, at this time, I would like to recognize representatives from the Department of Public Works. I assume it's you, Mr. Cabetta.
Yes, Council President, thank you again. Project WC 1405 is a contract that we utilize to install permanent restoration or implement permanent restoration once our utility crews have completed water main break repairs and other buried infrastructure work. So this request, OEC is requesting the addition of around $2.4 million due to the fact that the replacement contract that we have for WC 1405, the procurement of that contract was delayed due to COVID. And so at this point, what we'd like to do is supplement the existing contract to sort of tie this over until we can actually procure the replacement contract. As far as the MBE and WBE achievements, we are below the target. We're below the target currently, but with the addition of the $2.4 million, we are hoping to again increase the utilization of the MBE subs on the contract and the WBE subs on the contract.
Mr. Cabetta, real quick before you continue, where are we at with MBE, WBE currently with the money spent to date?
So the actual MBE percentage is about 15%, 15%. Again, the goal is 18%. So, and then the WBE actual is 3.4%, and the goal committed is 6%.
Thank you. At this point, are you finished, Mr. Cabetta? Sorry for.
Oh, yes. I was waiting for other questions. I am finished. We would request that the board approves.
No, thank you. Mr. Comptroller, do you have any questions or concerns regarding this item?
I do. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Cabetta, what percentage of the total work for this contract is already completed?
99%. We are almost expended of that 4.6.
Okay, so the only way that so let me back out a little bit. If we had simply started the process earlier to open up a new contract such that you didn't need to extend this one to cover the gap in time before the new one is available. If that new one had been started sooner and was able to go into effect immediately, then this contract would just be over. And the contractor would have simply failed to meet their MBE, WBE goals. Would that essentially be correct?
Based on the numbers that I'm looking at, that is a true statement.
Okay, so on the one hand, extending the contract gives us time to get our act together and get a new contract out into the field so that we can, be following the normal process. But the side effect is by extending the contract to Monumental Paving and Excavating, we're essentially giving them an extra 3 months and an extra $2.4 million with which to meet the original goals that they failed to meet.
That will be the intent. At the end of the day, the contractor commits these goals to the city, and from our perspective as project managers, we hold their feet to the fire to make sure that they are making a good faith effort to incorporate MBEs and WBEs. But we expect that the addition of these funds will give them a second bite at the apple, so to speak.
And I don't know if this is really a question for Mr. Cabetta or if this is more of a question for procurement, but assuming that the incumbent on this contract bids on the replacement contract, is there any point in the consideration process where it's taken into account that maybe by the time we're talking about 3 months down the line when we're awarding a new contract, maybe by then Monumental will have met their goals, but will it be factored into how the city treats Monumental going forward that they didn't actually meet their goal for the original time allotted for the contract? And so that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure this is a question for Mr. Cabetta. This is more of a, I'm not sure if I understand the nuances of the the current procurement process well enough to know whether this type of situation would get factored into that decision making. And I don't know if there's anyone on the call who can do that. I'm sorry that it didn't occur to me to specifically ask for someone from procurement to be here for this.
I think actually Ms. Brown is on from procurement. Is that you, Ms. Brown?
Good morning.
Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
sir.
I can't see. Oh, there's Keisha. I'm sorry.
Ms. Brown, if you could address Ms. Comptroller's concerns and question.
Okay, so Comptroller Henry, good morning, honorable members of the board. I believe this is a contract. Mr. Cabetta can speak more intelligently to it in terms of the procurement process because it is a by resolution. We in the central procurement do not procure the construction and professional services. So I'm believing that that is the case in underneath this contract. Is that correct, Mr. Cabetta?
Yes. So I think to the larger question, and let me defer to Mr. Garbark. I think you have your hand.
Yeah, I see Director Garbark. If you could jump in.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think the question, there's a couple of different things. So first of all, the Board of Estimates does have the ability to determine whether meeting or not meeting the MBE goal, place it from past projects would place a contractor or a vendor, make them not a responsible bidder, or at least not someone who would be worthy of getting that contract. The other thing is, for all construction and engineering contract, there is a pre-qualification process where they have to be pre-qualified in order to even bid on the project. There is a system in place where their meeting of the MBE goals and WBE goals is factored into their evaluations for pre-qualification. To date, no vendor has been turned away or prohibited from bidding or had their pre-qualification rescinded. That is a fairly stringent action. What has been taken is a slightly less drastic action is the retainage. So if a vendor does not meet their goal and they did not demonstrate a good faith effort to meet those goals, then the city will not release their retainage and will keep that money. That happened, I believe, once last year, and it was something that had not been done prior. But there are a number of different avenues that the board has the option to take in order to hold vendors and contractors accountable. And in this particular case, the contractor has been put on notice, and they have pledged to bring in as many minority and women business contractors as it will take to meet that goal. So we have made sure that it is abundantly clear to them.
But my concern is that the way the system is set up, those things are only triggered if you get to the end of the contract and they didn't meet the goals. When in this case, what we're basically doing is they got to the end of the contract, they didn't meet the goals, but we're about to vote to extend the contract. And once the contract is extended, if they hurry up and do this flurry of additional work, then they will have met the goals. And so none of the triggers that you're describing would go into effect. Is that effectively true? Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Hold on, Mr. Henry. Guys, just for the point of order, I think it's important for this body for us to kind of move and operate in order. When you're speaking, it's your floor, but please do not call on other members to speak.
I'm sorry about that, Mr. President.
Not a problem at all. Are you finished your thoughts, Mr. Comptroller Henry?
I'm happy to pause there.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I think I saw your hand raised.
I just want to make sure the comptroller is sure first, Mr. President, that he's finished his thought. I was actually trying to get the president's attention, Mr. Comptroller, and not yours. I just wanted to chime in to say this, Mr. Comptroller. This is again, note this is one of the big things that I've talked to our city administrator about the procurement process in general. And note that we will be looking at all of those things even before then about people meeting their goals, whether they're following the practices and things as we are moving forward, even before we have a new procurement process that we're going to work with our partners on this board and otherwise to implement. I just wanted to simply come off mute to say that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess, Mr. Comptroller, are there any additional questions or concerns? I think we all totally agree with you wholeheartedly, about this perspective. It seems as if we are added on work at the end of a job just to kind of make a goal, where, we have to take a much more proactive approach. The point of at the start of this job was for this goal to be met associated with the work that was assigned at that particular time. Obviously, that has not happened. We consistently see jobs like this and tasks come up like this. Again, I think all of us on this board is committed to kind of moving in a different direction, having a true paradigm shift as it relates to the operations and functions of these bids and these contracts, particularly as it relates to them being done by a more diverse, more inclusive set of vendors and contractors.
Respectfully, Mr. President, maybe I should be a little clearer. I'm not even raising these concerns because I'm worried that this was intentionally done to give Monumental Paving an opportunity to meet its goals. As far as I can see, the real problem here is that we didn't start working on the replacement contract early enough to have a replacement contract ready to go when we were done with this contract. And if we had that replacement contract ready to go, and we could simply end this contract without putting the city at a disadvantage of not having a way to repave utility cuts and restore sidewalks for 3 months. If we could have simply ended this contract, then in that case, Monumental Paving could have been held accountable for the fact that they did not actually meet their MBE goals. So my concern is not so much that we are doing something to help a particular contractor. My concern is that our processes aren't fitting together in the right with the right timing to ensure that we can move smoothly from contract to contract. And as a result, one contractor's bad MBE, WBE attainment is going to effectively fall into the cracks in this case. And I would hope that there would be something done during the procurement process for the replacement contract to keep that in mind. And maybe one of the things we need to look at is, Director Garbark made reference to various triggers that relate to a contractor's ability to show MBWB participation during the term of a contract. Maybe we just have to literally put into the policies or the rules and regs somewhere the fact that we are allowed to distinguish between the initial contract and any extensions, so that if there was a failure to comply during the original term that was remedied during the extension, there would still be some way to hold the contractor accountable for that initial failure. And so that was kind of the point I was raising. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
No, thank you, Mr. Comptroller. I couldn't agree more. We also know that change orders in the form of these types of extensions limit competition. And when you take out smaller jobs, again, in relative terms, you're limiting the opportunity for other smaller companies, potentially other MBE, WBEs from being primes on those types of smaller work. So again, going back to Comptroller Henry's concerns, I'm pretty sure the rest of the board members share the same concern. We've heard from our mayor. We know that there's been significant work in the legislative side, as well as a lot of work that's going on the administrative side, so we can get in front and again have a paradigm shift as it relates to the operation of these contracts. At this point, are there any additional questions or concerns for DPW? Hearing and seeing none, I will entertain a motion to approve this item.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor of approving this item, please say aye.
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 Opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is now approved. Now on to Herring Run Sewer Shed. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on pages 49 and 50 of the agenda. Item number 2, extra work order number 9 in the amount of $2,522,179.30. SC 910, improvement of sanitary sewer collection system in the Herring Run Sewer Shed, Part 2 and Chicopin Run. Again, at this time, I would like to recognize a representative from DPW to speak on behalf of this item. Mr. Cabetta.
Thank you again, President Mosby. SC 910 is a modified consent decree project, one of our consent decree projects. The project is comprised of 2 general types of work. One is sanitary sewer rehabilitation. The other is stream restoration. During the execution of this contract, there were significant storms and rain events that washed out a lot of the work. It was a fairly a difficult project to execute. And so a lot of the cost overruns that contributed to this particular request are related to the weather events that we endured during the project. This project is state funded, so the MBE and WBE utilization is mandated by the state, the Maryland Department of the Environment, and MDE has found the contractor, in this case Spinello, to be in compliance with the MBE and WBE goals that they have set. Furthermore, with the approval of this particular change order, the contractor's attainment of MBE utilization will be around 23%, and their WBE at the utilization will be around 11%. And with that, we would like to request the approval of the change order.
Thank you, Mr. Cabetta. At this point, are there any additional questions or concerns from the board regarding this particular item? Mr. Comptroller, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Cabetta, I understand that MBE-WB compliance for this contract is actually overseen by the Maryland Department of the Environment because the work is required under a consent decree. Is that understanding correct?
That is correct, sir.
Can you confirm that DPW intends to seek a waiver of the MBE-WB goals from NDE?
In these types of projects, it would be the contractor that would be seeking the waiver.
Is the contractor seeking such a waiver?
Yes, and they have been provided that waiver.
They have received it.
The good faith efforts have been recognized by the MDE.
Okay. Well, I was going to ask a question about what happens if MDE finds the contractor not in compliance, but I guess that's moot in the situation if they've granted the waiver. This extra work order is for about $2.5 million. How much of that amount will be allocated to the MBE-WB subcontractors?
For that, I will ask our construction manager, Ms. Angie Cornish, to provide details. Ms. Cornish?
The MBE WBE amount total would be 34%.
Okay, so and just to be clear, that is how much should be allotted to meet the goals, correct?
Oh no, the original goals was at 18% MBE and WBE at 16%, which was 34%. In the waiver, or excuse me, in the realignment that was requested through Maryland Department of the Environment, the WBE goals will remain, at a deficit, but it will be 11%. They've increased their MBE goals by 23%. So the overall total of minority goals will be 30% of the contract price.
But that's the goal. What I'm wondering is, do we already have, copies of subcontracts with Spinello, between Spinello and a sufficient number of MB WBs to meet that goal? Do we know how much they've already lined up in terms of actually attaining that goal?
Yes, he's listed as contractors. He's even added contractors that were already on the project.
Okay.
So we do have the contractors that are being assigned the MBE WBEs. We do have those listed.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Comptroller. At this point, are there any additional questions regarding this particular item?
Yes, Mr. President, I've got a question. I thought.
Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I thought someone just said this was state funded. I understand that the state is overseeing the MBE, WBE, but who's funding this project?
I'm sorry. If I said state funded,
No, it was stated.
I apologize for misspeaking.
No, it was stated. It was stated earlier. It wasn't you, Mr. Comptroller. Mr. Kevita, or even Director Garbar, can you guys speak to the concern of City Solicitor Shea?
Yeah. So yes, thank you, Mr. President. Yes, we are using for this state revolving funds. So that's through the Maryland Department of the Environment. So they have a lower interest rate than our revenue bonds. So we put projects forward and get either WIFIA funding, which has the lowest interest rate, that's through the EPA, or state revolving funds, which has a little higher interest rate. But either one of those, WIFIA or the SRF, state revolving funds, that would be subject to the state's MBE and WBE goals and not the cities.
Thank you.
Mr. Comptroller?
This might just be me being persnickety with language, and if so, I apologize. But in a situation like that, would it really be accurate to call that state funded, or would state finance be more applicable? Because we're actually paying the state back; they're just fronting the money. So that's not, in my world, that's not funding. They're just lending us the money. You know, we're actually paying for it. We just have to pay them back, right? Is that fair?
Board of Estimates, battle of words, the semantics duel. Who are you asking that question to, Mr. Comptroller?
I think technically I'm asking Mr. Garbark.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Garbark.
Yes, that is correct. It is financing. However, contingent upon us accepting the financing is relying on the state's goals to be imposed.
Yeah.
So,
and that's how we get back to the mandate, the consent decree. Okay, gotcha.
yes, sir.
At this point, are there any additional questions or concerns regarding this item? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of approving this item, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is now approved. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on pages 57 and 58 of the agenda. Kentech Consulting, renewal of contract number B50005017, background investigations, Baltimore City Police Department. We have Deputy Director Chanel Bassfield of BPD here to speak on this item, as well as Ms. Keisha Brown from Procurement, and well as Chief Miller of MWBOO. Deputy Director Bassfield, the floor is yours. Sorry, Deputy Director, you are on mute.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. President.
Good morning.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Good morning. I'll be presenting in reference to Kentech Consulting. I'm not exactly sure. I know Miss Miller wanted me to present in reference to the allocation of investigative resources for Kentech. So I just don't know how much detail the board would like me to get into in reference to the Kentech partnership and the Kentech contract.
If you could, just for general knowledge to the public, if you could kind of at a high level communicate this agreement.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. President. So back in 2019, I was tasked with conducting a pilot in reference to background investigations partnership between Kentech and the Baltimore Police Department. At that juncture, there was a significant backlog at the background investigation stage of the hiring process. So I worked specifically with Kentech Consulting, members of the Baltimore Police Department recruitment unit, in addition to our law enforcement partners who I know was utilizing Kentech services to streamline their background investigations process, specifically the Chicago Police Department. So what I was able to do is bring the parties together to figure out how we could adopt a streamlined background investigations process and customize it to the Baltimore Police Department, creating clearly delineated tasks between Kentech investigators and the Baltimore Police Department. For background investigations, you have to have certain certifications and clearances in order to run the sensitive criminal history side of the background investigation. And so what we did was we parsed out the field work specifically to Kentech Consulting. So they perform all of our employment verifications, the neighborhood canvasses, the personal reference checks, and things of that nature, which we consider field work. And then BPD, internal investigators, they're responsible for conducting the sensitive criminal history, the NCIC, the meters checks. And so what we did under this pilot, we were able to have the background investigations completed in 30 days. And then with that process, we were able to streamline the process so that our hiring process versus before it was anywhere between 9 months to a year. We were able to cut that down significantly. As a matter of fact, the first candidates that went through the Kentech process, we were able to get some local candidates hired as quickly as in 2 months with this new workflow. So right now, the vast majority of our candidate pool is streaming from the Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, corridor because we've realized through our robust recruitment efforts, there was a significant applicant pool in that demographic area that we could tap into because NYPD just didn't have enough vacancies to hire all the candidates. And so with Kentech conducting our field work, we are seeing our numbers for city residents has increased significantly in 2020, but Kentech is responsible for doing the boots on ground work so that we can marry the file up at the end of the 30 days to get the candidates through the hiring pipeline and have the hiring pipeline be efficient so that we're not losing our candidates to neighboring agencies.
Madam Deputy Director, thank you for that very detailed explanation of the arrangement. Before we go into any questions or concerns, I know that there was some significant work done by Chief Miller at MWBOO in looking into this. So Chief Miller, if you could kind of give us your assessment, background, where we are today, and then to the board, we'll jump into any questions or concerns for Ms. Miller, Ms. Brown, or Madam Deputy Director. Chief Miller, if you could speak to your work.
Yes, good morning, Council President Mosby, Mayor Scott, Comptroller Henry, and members of the board. Regarding the B5000-5017, as stated, the prime contractor is Kentech Consulting. Though they were found non-compliant, we did create an approved plan for them to help assist with increasing the MBE and WBE goal utilization. So far, the prime contractor is fulfilling the requirements that we have put in place. And during the compliance review period, we did learn that a lack of the minority utilization resulted from the logistics related to the new hire recruitment, as Deputy Bassfield has explained. The contract scope of work does include field investigations, which we've just learned that Kentech fulfills the majority of that for the police department. And at the time their issued work, some of the challenges that were met with the MBE and WBEs is them not being able to work out of state to fulfill the investigations, and also not having the proper licensing to do the background checks that are required in those jurisdictions. So we did correspond in depth with Deputy Bassfield, who we learned leads a lot of this investigation and recruitment process. And she provided a lot of helpful information to us. And so we are confident that as long as the recruitment process improves for Maryland or the areas in which Kentech and the MBE and WBE firms can be utilized, we do feel that they will improve and increase their goals because they are demonstrating the efforts with the improved plan.
Thank you, Chief Miller, for that background. At this point, I'll turn it over to the board. Are there any questions or concerns for the police department? Yes, Mr. Comptroller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think this question is probably more for Deputy Director Bassfield. Given that there seems to be an issue with Kentech doing background checks on out-of-state applicants, isn't it possible in 2021, when we've made such significant changes to just how life and work because of the pandemic, isn't it possible to conduct background checks using some combination of online databases or video calls rather than actually sending investigators to another city? Because not only would you be saving on the travel costs, but if they are doing the work from here, then they're licensed here and the licensure issues go away. Could you speak a little bit to why they have to physically go somewhere to do these background checks?
Yes, sir, Mr. Comptroller. So with background investigations, the short answer to your question is yes. We are able to electronically correspond with references with law enforcement agencies to get information during the background investigation. And so that is currently being done by both BPD and Kentech. The specifics of background investigations, when you talk about sworn, specifically police officers, correctional officers, and individuals who've been employed in positions of public trust, some agencies by policy will not provide the level of information that we are required to obtain, both by COMAR and the mandates of the consent decree. They will not provide the level of information that we need electronically or over the phone. They will require you to schedule an appointment to review the file. And so with that, we do conduct what we can electronically, but we also know that there is value in having an investigator, a seasoned investigator, to review internal affairs files specifically related to a candidate's history of use of force, citizens' complaints, and misconduct. We want to make sure that we're actually laying eyes on those files to make sure that the information that we're receiving is truthful, to make sure that the individual who we are corresponding with on the other end is exactly who they say they are. We've had situations where candidates have provided information that was a supervisor reference, but we found out that it was a former coworker. And then when we digged a little deeper and actually sent a Kentech investigator to the agency to review the file, we actually did find supplemental information. And so the short answer, yes, we do conduct majority of the background investigation electronically, but with the mandates of the consent decree and specifically the COMAR regulations that we have to conduct in-depth vetting. And some of that work, again, by policy, more and more agencies and also private employers, they're using third-party employment verification services where they're just not giving us the level of information that we need to confidently vet and screen candidates to make sure that we're hiring the most qualified individuals for the Baltimore Police Department.
So just as a clarification, I just want to make sure this is me practicing my reflective listening. So the COMAR requirements and the consent decree, that applies to the level of information that we need to obtain. Those issues, those items, COMAR and the consent decree, they don't require us to go get that information in person. You're saying the other entities who hold that information are refusing to transmit that information electronically or over the phone, and they are requiring somebody come and visit in person and see it with their own eyes. And so therefore, my question first is, do we do that to anybody else? Are we complicit in this incredible violation of the principles of distancing and safe behavior during a global health pandemic?
So in terms of our file reviews, we do share information. And again, some agencies will send us the entire internal affairs file electronically. So most agencies do value partnership and sharing information. The COMAR regulation states that we have to conduct the in-depth vetting. This consent decree specifically for Baltimore hiring individuals with prior law enforcement experience states that we have to review their training, their history of citizens complaint, misconduct, and any sort of discipline. And so to answer your question, I do know that they've made modifications because of COVID-19 and the pandemic. But again, by policy, some agencies hold firm on it despite the pandemic. And in those instances, we are required to send a representative to those agencies to review the file. I do know that Kentech has investigators all across the country. So if, for example, if we have a candidate that lives in upstate New York who worked for the NYPD and NYPD refuses to provide the information to us, then we would consult with Kentech. Kentech would dispatch a field investigator that is already in that region. So they have investigators in New York that would go to review the file. If we have someone in California and we need to get information from the LAPD, they have investigators in Los Angeles. So they're basically an extension of our investigative reach.
Okay, well first of all, that's really good to hear, because that part we were unclear about in terms of if the way that Kentech's licensure issues were described, it sounded like Kentech was only a local firm and did not have already some ability to have people elsewhere, such that such an extensive amount of travel was required. I appreciate that this isn't on you, but I do think that we should be, as a city, I think we should be pushing back on any entity that is being uncooperative and requiring personal viewing of records in a time when still the majority of the country understands that we should be locked down and we should not be requiring face-to-face contact. I get that this is important and sensitive information, but it is. I'm going to stop fighting the urge to say some of these people need to just get over themselves and realize that we're not living in the world we used to be living in, and requiring someone to come to my office and look at a record when you could just send it is I'm feeling it's very irresponsible.
It's also very costly, Mr. Comptroller.
Yeah, I mean, why would they be insisting on that? And that's why the first question I asked was, we don't do this to other people, do we? I mean, if somebody is, if a former BPD officer is trying to become the deputy chief of Billings, Montana, we don't make the people running Billings jump through hoops and send somebody out here to see that officer's file, do we?
We do not. We do not.
Okay.
And again,
Okay.
there's not a lot of agencies. Some of the bigger agencies have, again, pre-COVID. I used to be a background investigator. I physically came to BPD to review files. A lot has shifted. We've had a lot of adjustments.
Good.
We've had to we've had to be flexible during the pandemic. But the reality of background investigations is we want to ensure that we are thoroughly vetting candidates, specifically when you talk about police officers, giving the climate in the landscape for today. And Kentech is an extension of our investigative reach. And it is, for me, helps me to sleep at night knowing that, we have experienced background investigators across the country that if I have questions about a candidate's history with discipline or misconduct or anything in their background, that I have a seasoned investigator that can actually review the file if that agency does not electronically submitted. So they are an extension of our investigative reach. And again, with the marketing campaign, with all the robust efforts to really recruit city residents, I'm hopeful that the Kentech reach will be local. But right now we have identified the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania region. Again, they have so many applicants, and we say, hey, let's attract them to Baltimore with the marketing campaign. And we've been really successful this year. And the result is a lot of the background work. I send batches to Kentech on a weekly basis. Some weeks the batches are a mixed bag between city residents and New York. Some weeks it's all city, some weeks it's all New York. It just depends on how many candidates are in the batch for that particular week. And so we're hopeful that we can, with the marketing campaign, attract a robust candidate pool from the city. But right now, with Kentech's reach, it is a great help for us to conduct thorough background investigations for our out-of-state candidates. And that's where most of our applicant pool is coming from right now.
Are there any provisions in place to require that they leave any Yankees gear with back at home before they come here to serve, or are we tolerant to that as a force?
Are we sure to add Yankees and Steelers gear to the forms?
All right, Mr. President, the only other issue I had here was that when the contract was originally brought to the board back in February, the contractor was not in compliance with the MBE-WBE goals. And at that time, they had not responded to attempts from Chief Miller and the MBU office to address the noncompliance. If Chief Miller is now comfortable with them having a plan for moving forward, then I have no other questions or concerns.
And I think that's what Chief Miller stated earlier at the beginning. So I guess Chief Miller, just to confirm again for the comptroller's question, but you can just tell us yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are confident, especially after we had our dialogue with Deputy Bassfield.
Gotcha. No, thank you so much again for your background work there. The only other question, comment I have for Deputy Bassfield before we move on is, if you could, keep us a friendly list of jurisdictions that are not being open to partner, particularly to the comptroller's point in the midst of this global pandemic. Really interested because I think, as it relates to the administration through the mayor, as well as the legislative body through myself, working with our counterparts in those other places to ensure that we're able to kind of ease whatever concerns they have and develop some level of compact or partnership. I think is, probably the next steps, particularly if we're seeing a large number of individuals from certain areas that we're targeting, and those jurisdictions are, providing that kind of, hoops for us to jump through. Really interested in trying to break down those barriers to, help for a more efficient, effective process, but also more importantly, saving the city money as it relates to dispatching investigators out. At this point, are there any questions or concerns for the board? For Deputy Director, Chief Miller, or Ms. Keisha Brown? Hearing and seeing none, I will entertain a motion to proceed on this item.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of approving this item, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. Thank you so much for coming on, Deputy Director. The background information and an explanation you provided was adequate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Next up, the final item on the non-routine agenda can be found on pages 58 of the agenda. It's Eastern Salt Company Incorporated, renewal of contract number B50005151, salt for snow removal, Department of Transportation. We have on with us Ms. Keisha Brown, again for procurement, as well as Chief Miller of MWBOO to speak on this item. Ms. Brown, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Mosby. Good morning, Mayor Scott, Comptroller Henry, and other members of the board. The Bureau of Procurement is asking that the contract be renewed for zero additional funds. There was some discussion in terms of the MBE, WBE, which I've collaborated with my colleague, Chief Miller, in the Bureau MBU office, and the contractor has met their goals through a good faith effort.
And Ms. Brown, what are those goals? I believe, if I can recall, they were very low.
The goals were set for, I believe, 11%. Let me see. It is. The commitment was for 10% for MBE and 6% for WBE.
6%. Oh yeah, 10% for MBE, 6% for WBE. So it seems relatively low, particularly for a task as relates to salt and snow removal. I guess, Chief Miller, do you have anything to add regarding, I guess, how we got to this goal? Where we're at this point of trying to do this extension?
Good morning, again, members of the board. With regard to this contract, the goals were set back in, I believe, 2017. I'm not sure and cannot speak to how the calculations were achieved or met, but for the 10% for the MBE, the prime contractor did select 3 MBEs to perform, and he did segment the work based on a variation of percentages between the 3 firms, and then 2 WBEs. And again, he did meet the compliance by way of good faith effort. And again, the work, one of the things we did identify, the work related to this contract is dependent upon inclement weather because it is dealing with bulk salt requests that come from Department of Transportation.
So we've talked about this in the past, and I think right now it is our job and our duty to try to clean up or correct or try to better understand decisions that were made in the past. We constantly talk to like DPW and other departments where there are very unique subject matter expertise for particular parts. I think there was like this hydraulic part that was on some pumping station in a DPW facility a couple weeks back. And there was like one vendor that we could find out there to kind of do this. But when we talk about literally salt procurement and snow removal, it's really concerning to me that on a contract like that, where we have local based companies, where we have minority owned companies, where we have women owned companies, that this type of contract will have such a small WBE, MBE kind of measure. In saying that, it is concerning to me, and I know that this vendor did everything that the vendor was supposed to do in living up to what I would consider low expectations associated with those goals. So this is not about the vendor, it's more about what the city did or did not do and like where we are at this particular point. So I guess that's my own personal concerns when we look at this particular job. And again, I know it wasn't under your leadership, Chief Miller, and understanding the evaluation of where we got to the goals that we are right now. But to the board members, I am deeply concerned. I guess, are there any questions or concerns from other members of the board? Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. President, thank you. I think a couple things. I think if I'm not mistaken, this contract is specifically for salt for snow removal and not the removal portion itself. And
Yeah.
I wanted to highlight that because I actually myself, once we moved into this snow season, I made sure to let DOT and all our team know that as we and Director Garber, as we move forward with future contracts around snow removal, that we have a more robust use of MBE, WBEs, because we know so many people have that capability. But in this case, and I know that Mbu can talk about it a little more, this one, in my understanding, is about basically the moving of salt. And I don't know if anyone from DOT is on here to discuss it further, because I had the very same questions that you had, Mr. President, when I saw the item coming up.
I mean, to that point, Mr. Mayor, this item has been deferred for quite some time. I think maybe 4, 5 or 6 meetings ago. So I think I just seen Director Sharkey pop on. Director Sharkey, would you like to speak to this issue?
Yes, this is not for snow removal. This is for salt procurement and the trucking of the salt to the salt domes. So no.
Yes, I'm sorry for bringing up snow removal. I guess the posture of my concern is still the same as it relates to procuring salt and moving of salt. So it seems like I don't want to call it a mundane task. I'm pretty sure that there are specific things that have to take place and specifications that need to take place. But it would appear that this could potentially be opportunities for local businesses, for minority businesses, and for women-owned businesses. And to have such a small goal set from a MBE, WBE perspective is still very problematic to me, specific to procurement of salt and transportation of salt. I guess are you finished, Director Sharkey? Nothing.
Yeah. Yes. Just wanted to. Yep. Nothing else to say.
Thank you, Director Sharkey. At this point, are there any other questions or concerns from members of the board? At this point, I'll entertain a motion.
Move it.
Second.
So it's been moved and properly second. All those in favor of approving this item, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. Please let the record reflect that I'm a no vote for extending this particular contract. Again, I think this was a huge opportunity for us to go back to the drawing board. Nothing that this particular vendor did, but when we talk about a $5 million contract to date, and with the extension, what that could mean, and I think it goes all the way through 2022. That's just where my concerns are. So that being said, I think it's approved with a vote of 4-1. I believe that is the last item on the agenda for today. Are there any other additional points from members to bring up? Hearing and seeing none, as there is no new business, no more business before the board, we will recess until bid opening at 12 noon. The Board of Estimates will reconvene on March the 31st, 2021. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. Baltimore, please continue to stay safe. Follow all health protocols as it relates to COVID-19. Wear your mask, wash your hands, continue to social distance. Baltimore, we love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Carr.
Won't be the first time that's happened. Good afternoon. The Board of Estimates is now in session for the receiving and opening of bids. As part of the overall effort to limit transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the Board of Estimates is conducting bid openings virtually. Members of the public can call in to listen to bid openings live by calling 443-984-1696 and entering access code 0842939. Board of Estimates meetings are broadcast live on Charm TV, Channel 25 on Comcast Cable in Baltimore City. Meetings are also streamed on the internet at https://www.charmtvbaltimore.com/live-stream. The Board of Estimates will continue to conduct bid openings virtually while the state of emergency declared by the Mayor of Baltimore and the Governor of Maryland remains in effect. No addenda have been received. Thank you. Okay, we have 9 items before us today. Taking the first one. Oh. This is what I have to pass this down.
No.
No.
I think he has that one. The bid sheet.
Okay, just one at a time. Okay. For some reason okay. All right. First item. DOT contract TR 21011, resurfacing highways at various locations, Northeast Sector 1. There should be a bid bond if the bid is over $100,000. All right, this has a bid bond.
Yep.
The bid is from LF Mahoney Incorporated, and it is in the amount of $2,611,422.80.
Correct.
All right. Okay. Second one is from P. Flanagan and Sons Incorporated.
With a bid bond.
Do you see the bid bond?
Yep.
Okay.
Surety. Yep. Bid bond.
The bid is in the amount of $1,699,721.00.
Yes.
Next is from E&R Services Incorporated. I have a bid bond.
Yes. Does.
And the bid is in the amount of $1,858,515 and no cents.
Yep.
And the final one on this contract is from Manuel Luis Construction Company Incorporated.
With a bid bond.
Have a bid bond. And the bid is in the amount of $1,774,163.58.
All right, I move that we refer these to the Department of Transportation for tabulation and report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to the second item, DOT contract TR 21012, resurfacing highways at various locations northwest, Sector 2. There should be a bid bond. First item, first bid is from P. Flanagan and Sons.
With a bid bond.
Have a bid bond, and the bid is in the amount of $1,726,733.
Yep. Thank you.
Next bid. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, that's,
My shuffleboard is getting better. Okay. It's from Manuel Luis Construction Company Incorporated.
with a bid bond.
Have a bid bond. Okay, and the bid is in the amount of $1,728,257.77. The third and final bid for this contract is from ENR Services Incorporated.
They have a bid bond.
They have a bid bond, and their bid is in the amount of $1,791,473.20.
Yes.
I move that we refer these to the Department of Transportation for tabulation and report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, the next item is DOT contract TR 21013, resurfacing highways at various locations, Southwest Sector 3, and there should be a bid bond. First bid is from P. Flanagan and Sons.
With a bid bond.
We have a bid bond, and the bid is in the amount of $1,761,478.
Yep.
Sorry. All right. Second bid is from ENR Services Incorporated.
With a bid bond.
There we go, the bid bond, and the bid is in the amount of $1,906,117.30. And the final bid on this contract is from Manuel Luis Construction Company Incorporated. Oh, I'm sorry, I just realized I'm reading off the duplicate. Manuel Luis.
And they have a bid bond.
Have a bid bond, and the bid is in the amount of $1,743,444.82.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Can you give me that again, Mr. Controller?
If I can find it, there we go. $743,444.82.
Thank you. I move that these be referred to the Department of Transportation for tabulation and report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're moving to the fourth item, which is DOT contract TR 21014, resurfacing highways at various locations southeast, Sector 4, and there should be a bid bond. Right. First bid is from Manuel Luis Construction Company Incorporated. They have a bid bond, and the bid is in the amount of $1,641,311.32.
Yep.
Not sure if it goes with this or not, but I'll tuck it in. Came out loose one. Yeah, this one's down, so it's gotta go with that.
Yeah.
Okay, next bid is from ENR Services Incorporated.
Have a bid bond.
Has a bid bond. And sorry, having trouble finding the
Page 307.
207?
3.
307. Getting closer. All right. All that drama for a bid of $1,797,648.10.
Yep.
And the final bid on this contract is from P. Flanagan and Sons.
With a bid bond.
With a bid bond. And the bid is in the amount of $1,778,123.00.
Yep.
So I move that these be referred to the Department of Transportation for tabulation and report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to contract number 5, General Services GS 19812, Fire Station number 5 roof replacement. Should have a bid bond. There is only one bidder. And that bidder is Nastos Construction Incorporated.
They have a bid bond.
They have a bid bond. And
Page is that?
well, I have a base bid on page 50. I'm looking to see if that's, is that it? Hmm?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, then the base bid is $750 and no cents.
Yes.
I move that this be referred to the Department of General Services for tabulation and report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to our 6th item. Rec and Parks, thank you. Contract RP 20809, Patterson Park entrance improvements, for which there should be bid bonds. First bid is from Allied Contractors Incorporated
With a bid bond?
with a bid bond. All right, and the bid is in the amount of $162,000.
Yes.
Second bid is from Anchor Construction Corporation.
With a bid bond?
There is a bid bond, and the bid is in the amount of $129,299.96.
Yes.
All right. And the third final bid on this contract is from P. Flanagan and Sons.
With a bid bond?
Has a bid bond, and the bid is in the amount of $142,274.00.
Yes.
I move these be referred to the Department of Recreation and Parks for tabulation and report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7, from procurement, contract B50006172, traffic signal maintenance and supplies. No bids received. I will attempt not to look at the metaphysical implications of that, and we just pass that on. Just announce that no bids were received for this contract. So I guess send that down. So we don't have to approve anything being sent to procurement because there's nothing here.
They'll probably select source it.
Okay. All right, item number 8, procurement contract B50006043, police body armor. No bid bond necessary. The first bid is from Municipal Emergency Services in the amount of, let me just check, make sure I'm doing this right. Okay. In the amount of $394,012.50.
Yes.
And the second bid is from Gulls LLC, and that is in the amount of $371,550.
Yes.
I move that these be referred to the Bureau of Procurement for tabulation and report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And the 9th and final contract before us today is procurement B50006195, mowing of grass in medians, right-of-ways, specialized landscaping / planting beds. All right. Okay, so the first one, duplicate, is from Motier Services Incorporated. And it is, oh, wait, see if there's a separation here.
There's one
Gotcha. Northern, okay, so Motier Services has a bid for the northern boundary and a separate bid price for the southern boundary. So northern boundary price is $5,826,600. And southern boundary is $6,458,400.
Yes.
All right. The second bidder is, yeah, I see. So here's the duplicate for the southern book. Oh, here's another duplicate for the southern book. And then here are the duplicates for the north.
Northern, all right.
Okay, so I'll start with the north because, you know, they won. The bidder is Lorenz Incorporated.
Okay.
And their bid for the northern boundary is $3,258,096 and no cents.
Yes.
And their bid for the southern
That's the same.
Nope, I think I'm stuck in the MBE compliance.
Page 16.
There we go. Almost there. All right. Okay. That can't be right. There we go. There were two unnumbered pages between 16 and 17, and I was coming at it backwards. Lorenz's price for the southern boundary, their bid is $3,694,896.
Yes.
All
I
right.
move that we refer these to the Bureau of Procurement for tabulation and report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That being all the business before us, the Board of Estimates stands in recess until next Wednesday at 9 a.m., March 31st. Thank you all. Stay safe.